coil whine. What is it, and where does it generate from, and well, how do you resolve it? Coil whine may not be what you think it is. So with computer hardware and components of different types, right? Like electricity and voltage regulation is critical to that component's functionality, or for that component to function the way it's intended. Rather that be your motherboard, your GPU, your all-in-one liquid cooler, or your CPU cooler, your power supply unit, any of your components, for the most part, they all require a healthy dosage of electricity to flow through them. And now it is here where coil whine comes into play. You may think it could generate from your fans, but this is a common misconception that hopefully this video will help clear up. But coil whine is essentially a high-pitched frequency or a high-pitched noise that comes from your components, and it comes from the actual inductors that are on board the, say, PCB, or on board the component, say your graphics card, for example. And I say your graphics card because in this video, we are going to put the RTX 4070 Super up to the coil whine test. I had a few comments come through in the videos where we did the unboxing and the review. If you haven't checked those videos out, you can check them down in the description box below. But we had a few comments come through where other users mentioned that they had a similar sound coming from their RTX 4070 Super, or one of the MSI, one of the similar types or a similar class GPU, and wanted to know, was I experiencing the same thing? And at first, because of the way I test the graphics card, I initially did not pick up on the sound or the noise. And again, the noise generates or comes from, even with the RTX 4070 Super, as you'll see here in a second where we replay the sound, but the coils on board the graphics card are meant to regulate the flow of electricity. And typically one of the main causes, or one of the main issues where coil whine can develop or show its ugly noise, but one of the areas that this problem can generate from is a irregular flow of electricity to your graphics card, say from your power supply unit, or potential other issues with the graphics card where the electricity or the voltage regulators aren't necessarily doing their job, and it's causing the graphics card, or it's causing the coils in the graphics card to vibrate, and that's what generates that whiny high noise frequency. And that's because when you're firing up games, or you're smashing those FPS and rendering those pixels or what have you, your graphics card is actually pushing electricity through those coils, and what it's doing then is generating a magnetic field because of the voltage irregularity, and then that is also what's causing that high-pitched noise that you hear, and there goes the coil whine. So it's all in the vibration, right? It's all of the motion in the ocean, or in this case, the soup and the juice, right? So it's all about the electricity that's flowing through the inductors that's causing the magnetic field. Because the inductors are vibrating, we're getting that coil whine noise. So it's not coming from your fans. Your fans can make a different kind of noise, more of like a noise, if you will, where it's definitely noticeable and can be annoying. But coil whine, again, comes from the inductors or the coils on the PCB generating that magnetic field, and because they're vibrating, that's what's causing that whiny noise. Now, I did hear it on the RTX 4070 Super, and I tested this also at different fan speeds, as you'll see here in a second. And also what I did was I ran one of the Heaven benchmarks too, just to get an idea of, is this issue coming up when, say, the graphics card is under a heavy load, or is it doing when the graphics card is idle? And I want you to take a look for yourself. I tried to turn the audio up as much as I can. You'll see here the microphone is placed directly next to the graphics card. This isn't a typical situation for most gamers. Typically your graphics card is going to be enclosed in your case, and your case is likely going to be 2-3 feet away from you, or something to that extent, maybe 1 foot away from you, and you're likely going to be playing with headphones on. So you're kind of, oblivious to all the ambient sounds around you because you're immersed in your game, or at least I'd imagine you will be. But here, take a look at the first test we did and tell me if you can pick up on the noise. So again, we might have heard the fans, but you can also tell or pick up on that kind of whiny noise that's also in the background that just sounds like it shouldn't be there. It sounds like it's being generated from electricity. Again, that is the coils vibrating or moving at a fast rate because of the magnetic field that's being generated because of the irregularity in voltage. And now take a listen here when I put the graphics card under a load with the Valley benchmark or with the Heaven benchmark, and versus when I say close the Valley benchmark and the graphics card is just at idle. Take a listen. Now, hopefully, was able to pick up on some of the sounds or some of the noise, that coil whine that was coming from this RTX 4070 Super. And now, what are some of the common causes of coil whine, say, in a component like your graphics card? Well, one of the main issues, or one of the main causes that are most common in coil whine, especially with a graphics card, is current or voltage irregularities coming from the power supply unit. So if the power supply isn't generating enough clean, currents to the graphics card, then it can cause those inductors or coils to vibrate at that frequency and generate that whine noise. But this power supply unit is a G3 750 watt 80 plus gold rated power supply unit, so it's a little on the higher end, and I haven't had any issues before. And the sound isn't, again, always audible. Most of the time it's when the graphics card is under a super heavy load, but even now, as it's on currently, I don't hear it. And again, another common problem that's associated with coil whine, again, points back to electricity or the electric current coming from the power supply unit into that component. So in this case, like the RTX 4070 Super, if it's a component that has a high power draw that requires or demands a lot of current or voltage regulation coming to it from the power supply unit, then that too can also cause that whine noise. And believe it or not, another common cause for GPU coil whine is having your GPU work a little harder than it needs to or it should, and that's you're pushing your games at a super high FPS level. I mean, even in this benchmark here, we're able to push our graphics card to about 180 or 190 FPS, somewhere along the lines there. And most similar games that are, have similar requirements to this benchmark, say like Fortnite or something to that extent, also pushes this graphics card into the high 200s. But if your graphics card, and when your graphics card is working as hard as it is, like producing as many frames, that it can also cause it to, say, pull more power or pull more electric currents to that component, which can cause your graphics card to work harder and produce more electric signals than producing that coil whine noise. And then there's other factors that simply doesn't apply to our situation here with this RTX 4070 Super, but it could apply to you in your scenario, in your case. And so those other factors are, say, if you're overclocking your components or your hardware, age or wear and tear, and then, say, poor quality or not that great of a quality, say, in your components, because we like to say all components have value here on this channel. But those three factors don't apply here in our scenario with the RTX 4070 Super. It's essentially a brand new card, and we open it fresh out of the box. So it technically shouldn't be producing this noise. But one of the biggest factors that are kind of out of our control, and that is just coil whine could simply come from how the component is designed. So while coil whine doesn't necessarily or directly harm or is harmful to your components, or let's say your graphics card in this scenario, it does kind of indicate a potential issue or underlying issues that could be harmful over time. And now a few areas I could start to, say, try to troubleshoot the coil whine in my scenario. In my case, I would start with, say, replacing the power connectors or the power cables, and if that didn't work, the power supply. But I'm pretty confident in the power supply unit. This setup is temporarily and kind of evolves over time as the content changes, but for the most part, the GPU coil whine with this setup isn't too much of an issue or concern for me. But if it is for you and you continue to notice it in your games, or you continue to notice it when your graphics card is under a heavy load, I would either consult with your warranty if you have one, or try to make other changes to your setup or your system, like adjusting your settings in your games, or replacing one of your components like your power supply unit if it's inadequate or you think the issue could be coming from there. So again, coil whine isn't necessarily harmful to your components, just a super major annoyance. And if it continues to annoy you, then definitely take some of those steps we mentioned earlier in this video. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button for me with the notification bell turned on. I hit a wall, and with your help, you can help me break through it. Down in the description box below, you can also find other videos and ways to support the channel and the content. But that's all I got for this one. I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy.